welcome back subscribers and welcome new viewers. And I want to thank each and every one of you who have subscribed, who like and share my videos, because that helps my whole channel and this invaluable information to circulate out to more and more individuals just like you who are seeking this information. And I want to thank each and every one of you who have already and will in the near future assist my channel monetarily, and specifically right now the publishing of my book, my very first book, so that I can get that information out to as many of you who are seeking that. So again, thank you all for all of your support. And please don't feel bad if you want to monetarily support my channel, but you can't. Please don't feel bad, because you are supporting it and you can support it in many, many ways, and they're all essential. By subscribing, by liking, sharing, just by your beautiful energy and all of your comments. I appreciate and thank each and every one of you, because it's you who continue my channel being able to be seen and be shared with more and more people just like you. So thank you. And again, for those of you too who want to and are able to monetarily support my channel, and specifically right now on June, today is the 19th of June 2022, for those of you who are watching around and in this year of 2022, all of your monetary support, again, whether it doesn't matter the size of the donation that you choose or are able to give. I am appreciative of each and every one of you who are able to do that as well. And you can now know that it's going towards the publishing of my new book. And my title is My Life Journey and True Ancient Astrology. Okay, so again, thank you. All right, and today's video is going to be titled number 11, Chiron Viewer Request. And we're going to be talking about, or she, the author of this book, Chiron and the Healing Journey, and her name is Melanie Reinhardt, reviewing and reading Chiron in the 11th house, or Aquarius, for all of you. And I want to give a special thanks to Samuel for enabling this video to not just assist him, but each and every one of you who have Chiron in Aquarius or the 11th house. Okay. In the 11th house, we seek groups of like-minded people in order to widen our social sphere. We stand back from society to reflect on and perhaps to criticize the wider collective context of politics and history. We may not want to reform the world we see and become involved in social or political causes dedicated to improving the human lot. Individuals with Chiron in the last two houses and signs, as well as those with Chiron in the 8th and Scorpio, are often intensely connected to be the deeper psyche and the collective unconscious, but also vigorously defended against it. It takes considerable strength to be able to give expression to collective ideas, which is the 11th house, or feelings, which is the 12th house, without being carried away by them and losing our individuality in the process. However, Chiron in these houses and signs offers the possibility of our being able to do just this. Although we usually pay a price in terms of feeling somewhat isolated in our journey. And for those of you that don't know, my Chiron is in my 12th house in the sign of Pisces. Saturn and Uranus are the dual rulers of the sign of Aquarius. With Chiron here, or in the 11th house, we see the themes of these two planets interwoven. Some individuals with this placement will appear more Saturnian, others more Uranian. But, as explored in Chapter 5, Chiron's place between them suggests a both and perspective. Those with Chiron and Aquarius experience Chiron opposite its natal place just before their Saturn return. This creates problems with the Saturn return, as the Chiron and Chiron opposition may make us impatient with limitation and reluctant to face issues from the past which tend to surface around the Saturn return. And for those of you who are in or about to approach your first Saturn return or your second Saturn return. So your first Saturn return is going to be approximately the age 28 through age 31. The second will be around age 58 to about 61. So you might want to check out the Saturn return video that I just recently did, if that sounds right to you. Okay, where was I? Okay, I'm going to just recap just a little bit here. Those with Chiron in Aquarius experience Chiron opposite its natal place just before their Saturn return. This creates problems with the Saturn return, as the Chiron and Chiron opposition may make us impatient with limitation and reluctant to face issues from the past which tend to surface around the Saturn return. We perhaps try and skirt responsibilities in a bid for freedom, with the result that a crisis erupts at the next Saturn square at about the age of 35. However, some people experience this Chiron-Chiron opposition as an influx of creative energy and may take strides forward in self-expression and social participation. With Chiron in Aquarius or the 11th house, we are vulnerable to the collective unconscious with the sphere of ideas and ideals. Although we have the potential to be original and iconoclastic thinkers, we are also prone to taking on stereotyped attitudes. Rather than risk expressing our own opinions, we may adopt a party line of some kind, following the political or spiritual aspirations of the group to which we belong. We could become enslaved by the ideas of another person, not realizing that these hinder our own development. We may take on and subsequently reject many different systems of ideas on our quest. With this Chiron placement, we benefit by learning to use our own individual minds creatively, concretely, and with rational discrimination. If we can build a suitably Saturnian vehicle for the Uranian energy of our thoughts, we may find ourselves able to make an important contribution to others through our truly independent thinking. In this process, we will perhaps discover many useless shoulds and oughts, which we are slavishly believing or obeying. With Chiron in the 11th house or Aquarius, we can usefully direct our iconoclastic tendencies towards our own belief systems, allowing the quality of our own thinking to be revolutionized first, rather than participating unthinkingly in collective movements dedicated to social or political change. Some people with Chiron in the 11th house or Aquarius become the vehicle for controversial collective ideas and often suffer from the response they receive, as they may be way ahead of their time. They could be writers, poets, teachers, or philosophers, all of whom influence people's thinking by formulating what is ready to become conscious within the collective mind. Amongst those with this Chiron placement, we find many people whose names have become almost synonymous with a system of ideas. And I'm going to fast forward, not read the specifics because I'm going to keep this general, but for any of you who would like a written copy, just send me an email and I will definitely do that for you. With Chiron in Aquarius or the 11th house, we may be intensely critical of society or reject it as far as possible. Underneath, however, we may have a strong desire to make a positive contribution. We might become depressed and angry if we cannot find a way to do this. The urge then sours into acts of rebellion, destructiveness, and anarchy. We find it difficult to accept how things are and to work for change on that basis. If we embrace spiritual or utopian ideals and study revolutionary political frameworks, we will probably become progressively disillusioned as we realize that there is no perfect system or person on earth. Although we perhaps fervently believe that we know how things ought to be, we also need to learn humility, lest we espouse new ideas, ideals, or ways of life with as much rigidity as the old system we have rejected, and thus fall into our own shadow. With Chiron in Aquarius or the 11th house, however, we potentially have the gift for balancing the opposites represented by Saturn and Uranus. We then truly bridge the old and the new. We are able to embrace innovation without wholesale rejection of the past, incorporating it as a firm foundation to our individual life and connection with society. We positively influence others by our example of creative non-conformism, rather than by trying to convince them that our ideas are right. We uphold our own individuality. And that has everything to do with Leo and the 5th house. And make a positive contribution to the collective in which we live, although we are unlikely to belong to the status quo. Through through acceptance of limitation and imperfection, we can allow others to find their own way rather than imposing our ideas upon them. Some individuals with Chiron in Aquarius find it almost impossible to relate in a feeling way to people whose mental constructs are different from their own. You may begin to feel somewhat unreal yourself around such a person, as you do not exist for them unless you subscribe to the same ideals and political or spiritual beliefs. Astrologers, psychotherapists, and those involved in various metaphysical arts are spiritual disciplines. Let me start that sentence over. Sorry about that. Astrologers, psychotherapists, and those involved in various metaphysical arts or spiritual disciplines are not exempt from this. The whole of life can be seen through the binoculars of our own system of beliefs, and anything that does not fit is ignored, dismissed, or pruned to fit. Our clients may be subtly manipulated to conform with our own reality system or pet beliefs. In these fields, once something becomes a should, we are treading near the perilous area of mind control, and perhaps need to remember that the map is not the territory. It is sobering to realize that the media brainwashes us every day. That is so true. Influencing us to think in certain ways, to hold certain attitudes, and so on. Even this book is doing it. And that's tremendous that this author she's saying this herself, that her book, and absolutely even what I am speaking about, and my whole channel, which is highly astrological and intuitively accented with, so I too, I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing. With Chiron in Aquarius, or the 11th house, useful questions might be, whose ideas am I really actually receiving? Or whose truth am I believing? And those are actually good questions for all of us, even if we don't have this Chiron placement. Collective images and ideas, from news reportage to advertisements, create our worldview and influence our attitudes, aspirations, and ideals. Without an exercise of Aquarian detachment, we succumb to subtle forms of thought control, reminiscent of George Orwell's 1984. He has Chiron in Capricorn and Saturn in Aquarius. How amazing. And see, Saturn, the natural sign for Saturn is Capricorn. And the natural planet for Aquarius, which she spoke of earlier, is Uranus. So that's why she is talking about Saturn and Uranus together to balance them out. With Chiron in Aquarius, or the 11th house, we could be oversensitive to getting it right and tie ourselves in knots, trying to live up to spiritual ideals. We have perhaps transferred onto our belief system an attempt to win love from a cold and distant parent. I'm going to say that that's important for some of you. I'm having the feeling to, and the need to re-say that sentence. we have perhaps transferred on to our belief system an attempt to win love from a cold and distant parent. The cold and distant, that's Saturnian. So I'm being called also, for those of you, you might want to check your natal wheel and see where Saturn, and if it's aspecting your natal Saturn, and how your Chiron is your natal Saturn, especially in hard aspect to your Chiron, which would be conjunct, opposition, or square. We have perhaps, okay, excuse me, I'm not going to say that again. This attachment to perfection is destructive. For if we can only allow the perfect to live, many creative projects, relationships, and careers could go down the drain as a result. And I'm also getting the perfectionistic sign is Virgo. So I don't know if some of you have a Virgo Chiron, if you have a Virgo Saturn natally, or you might have either Chiron or your Saturn in the Virgo house, which the natural house for Virgo is the 6th house, or any combination of what I speak. And again, it's not going to be for all of you, but maybe too you have other planets in opposition. For example, I have other planets in opposition in Virgo, which are opposing my Chiron. I have Chiron in Saturn. I have Chiron in Saturn conjunct, both in Pisces, which is in opposition to some of my natal planets in Virgo, which are Pluto, Moon, and Uranus for me. So you might have some of that, possibly. Okay, you don't have to though. Okay, this attachment to perfection is destructive, for if we can only allow the perfect to live, many creative projects, relationships, and careers could go down the drain as a result. Until we have found a measure of inner freedom, we might fear commitment. However, Chiron brings the possibility of individual freedom within commitment to life. And when it is in Aquarius, this theme is particularly strong. The story of Prometheus illustrates this. A condition of his release from bondage and suffering was the wearing of a ring to remind him of his period of enchainment. With this Chiron placement, we might have a horror of groups and the collective, partly because we are sensitive to being influenced and taken over by collective ideas. Perhaps we only feel comfortable when we are in charge ourselves or playing the role of the outsider or dissenter. We could project the figure of the wounder onto the group and become paranoid and seek to protect ourselves by withdrawal or aggressive behavior. Martin Luther King said, "There is nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come." Some people with this placement have consciously opposed the collective. They have been creatively iconoclastic and facilitated social change. Emmeline Pankhurst, who won voting rights for women in Britain, has Chiron in Aquarius in the 12th house. When transiting Uranus was exactly conjunct this Chiron. Okay, I'm going to fast forward. We're talking specifically about her, so I'm going to just fast forward here. Okay. Women with this placement frequently have trouble in their relationships with their fathers. There you go, and I'm going to say this again. Women in particular, take a look at your natal wheel and also see where your Saturn placement is with your Chiron. Is your Saturn and Chiron conjunct, in opposition, or square? Because absolutely that has everything to do with what that sentence said. I'm going to say it again. Women with this placement frequently have trouble in their relationships with their fathers, who perhaps personify the more difficult Aquarian qualities. They may have been cold, critical, distant, unfeeling, or authoritarian. Conversely, one woman with Chiron in Aquarius said she felt that her mind was wounded through recognizing at an early age that she was the most intelligent person in her family. Her father was a particularly earthy person. She learned to deny her superior mind development and her own abilities in order to feel her father bigger and stronger than herself. Clarity, detachment, a highly developed sense of political or social potential, and an ability to articulate current trends within the collective are some of the gifts of this placement. But these too are double-edged swords, which need tempering by the humility of having felt our own suffering and accepted the imperfections inherent in life. And yes, the Chiron is called the wounded healer because first, of course, we are all going to experience the placement and have personal experiences related to the house placement and zodiac sign of our particular natal Chirons. And then when we have the Chiron transiting Chirons coming around, whether it's conjuncting Chiron return or opposing or squaring our Chirons, then that resurfaces and we will experience particular re-injuring if that hasn't been able to be taken care of yet, all in the hopes for those experiences to be painful enough so that we will search, we will seek another way, we will seek information and guidance so that we can become consciously aware. And again, those of you who are listening, you definitely are becoming consciously aware because you are becoming consciously aware of your placements of Chiron in your natal wheel and hopefully other placements in your natal chart as well, which all assists in your becoming consciously aware of what you were programmed with at birth, having to do with your natal wheel. And so that is awesome. Keep going. And again, any of you who would like a written copy of what I just read or anything, any of my previous readings, or if there is a Chiron or any other placement, Saturn, I have Saturn book, I have Chiron book, and I have Pluto book, and I have the nodes of the moon book. So any of those that you check back in my playlists, if I haven't read yet and you'd like me to read, or even transiting Pluto or transiting Saturn through the houses, let me know, and I will do so. Okay? Well, that's all I have until next time. Enjoy your beautiful day, your beautiful life, and I will say goodbye.